What's up, world? Welcome back to Authentically Us, the podcast where we talk about what it means to be authentic in everything that you do, in every space that you occupy. I'm one of the hosts. I'm ConRoy. And we got Tony, the man, your man. Tony, say what's up to the people.
What's going on, y'all? We are back for another real talk. So buckle up, because we about to get real.
Yes, and before we jump in, you already know the spiel. Give us a like, give us a review, share us, go on our Instagram. We're on every streaming platform, every place you can find a podcast, including YouTube. And we have merch. Support us with your merch. Boom. And we are reading a book for book club this month. Tony, what is the book called?
The book is Made for People by Justin Whitmer Early. All about friendship and how to stay connected with people in meaningful ways.
How to be a better friend. And we also have a great real talk today. So let's jump in to our real talk. Tony, what's the real talk?
The real talk today, we're talking about white allyship.
Can you describe what white allyship is?
Yeah, so I think white allyship can look different to different people, but I know in a lot of white spaces that I'm in, I often get white people asking, what can I do to support you and to be on your side? And to me, white allyship is, I don't have to be in the room for you to still stick up for things that you know I wouldn't stand for. You don't just let jokes or comments slide, but you address them regardless of who's in the room.
So it's almost like being like, I guess, stepping up on behalf of you when you're not in the room, when things may offend you, which I love that definition. I feel like white allyship is something that has definitely been a buzzword since 2020. You know, how can I be an ally? How can I be an ally to the Black Lives Matter movement? How can I be an ally to Black people? How can I be an ally to you? Right. And I feel like it's been something that I have not taken lightly. I do think there's a hard line between white allyship and white guilt.
Yes.
And what I feel like white allyship is, it essentially should almost feel natural, right? As opposed to like, hey, that's not okay for you to say. But I feel like white guilt, I've experienced a lot of from friends like since 2020, where they're like, oh yeah, I shouldn't do that, or I don't know, I don't even know how to explain like white guilt. It's like I can't explain it until I see it, and it's like, nah, like it's really okay. Or like people will be like, oh, I shouldn't do X, Y, and Z because my mom or my grandparents, or because my ancestors. And it's just like, yeah, but like you can also be normal.
Well, and like, so I would argue white allyship shouldn't feel natural. White allyship is going to spaces and doing things that feel so unnatural, but so necessary to advance people of color, to have people of color standing up in spaces where we need to start being and having our voices heard. Whereas white guilt to me is having this internalized shame because of your whiteness. And like, being white isn't a bad thing. Being white is who you are. And so, like, it's what do you do with your whiteness, and how do you recognize your whiteness in a way that you worry about others getting power, not just yourself.
Yeah, I I like that. I like that analogy. I guess what I was saying, where it should feel natural, is in terms of it should feel natural because this is now part of your DNA of essentially standing up and standing in for Black people. I feel like we or just people of color. Let me say that, people of color, because not it goes across the board, right? I would say Black people, especially things that I've been doing recently, I advocate for Black people all the time. With my job, I'm trying to get more Black coaches. I'm trying to get more Black people in management. I'm trying to see Black leaders in churches, in multicultural churches, making the decisions. Um, Black leaders, Black mayors, like all these things. I'm all advocating for that. But I feel like where white allyship can come in is that you are also advocating for that. And not just because it's a Black person, but because what that Black person or a person of color is saying, you actually agree with. And
Right.
you believe that they are the fit for that role.
Yes.
And
Yes.
not just because they're a person of color and we just need a person of color in that role.
Mm-hmm.
Much like I've seen it happen in the NFL, where I feel like it's shifting a little bit, where a lot of white coaches are getting jobs that Black coaches couldn't get an opportunity for. And I forget, the Rooney Rule. The Rooney Rule essentially is where they have to interview a Black coach when they're trying to get a coach. They have to interview at least one coach of color. I keep saying Black, but a coach of color. And it's kind of crazy because the fact that it's come to that, but I think it is getting better, much like I feel like white allyship in the spaces that I'm in, I feel like is getting better. Do you think, because I feel like you're in a lot of white spaces, like especially where we're from, half of your family, you know, um, do you feel like you've seen improvement in white allyship?
Yes, I definitely have seen improvement. But I often have to wrestle with people in order to see that improvement. Because I feel like I still have to sometimes explain this is why this matters. And so I'm still caught doing some of that education, and then white people would get, oh, okay, I'm on board now. And so it's just, do I have the capacity to teach and to get white people to understand what, like, this stuff is important, especially being Christian. Like, this is core to our belief in what Jesus was about. And I think there's still too many white people that think this doesn't matter to the gospel, and
It does.
I beg to differ.
Yeah. You know what? As you were talking, I was thinking about, we have a friend that we went to high school with. I don't want to say his name on the podcast until we get him on the podcast. He's Black. He's married to a white woman, and I recently saw him in the last year or two, and he was just telling me I was like, how was it during COVID? And he was like, I would go to my wife's family's house for dinners, and one of her uncles or something was like, hey, so what's it like being black? And then he goes, what's it like putting on a t-shirt? Like, and where I think white allyship comes in is whoever's in that room saying, Uncle so and so, that is not okay. This is why it's not okay. You just can't say that. I don't care when you grew up, what decade you grew up in. This is why that's not okay. And I think that can be an example of like, oh, this is how I can be an ally. It doesn't have to be when black people are around. Like you said, it's when I'm not in the room. Can you address those things?
Yeah, and I think in this society, it's not enough to say I'm not racist. Okay, you have to be anti-racist.
Yeah.
To say I'm not racist is like, to me, that's saying, oh, I won't laugh when someone tells a racist joke. Okay, you don't laugh, but are you speaking up? Because if you don't speak up, your silence says, oh, I co-sign that. I'm okay with that. You know, I think back to an earlier episode we did on the Fresh Prince, on Bel Air, and when Carlton's boys was saying the N-word and he was just letting it happen, Will got so enraged of like, you can't just let that slide. You have to say something.
Yep.
And that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Now Tony, you're mixed, right? Your mom's white, your dad's black. And you have a unique perspective. Much like I feel like I have a unique perspective because, you know, I grew up half my life with my mom who's black and half my life with my step grandma who's white. How do you navigate your identity, and how has that influenced understanding what it means to like to have white allyship in the fight against racism?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I still don't know if I've figured out what it means to navigate the body that I have. I still feel like I'm constantly wondering, what does it mean for me to show up completely white and completely black all at once? And I think it's just being confident in my body, in knowing that I don't have to fit a certain type of blackness or whiteness or biracialness. Just by being me is enough. And so, yeah, and what it means for white allyship is for me to just help the white people in the spaces I occupy to see, like, this is way more complicated than most of us realize.
Yeah, because you're like the bridge. Like you can be the bridge, right? Because you are half white, you are half black, and like showing up in these white spaces. I remember you were saying like in high school how people would talk about how you were, you know, too white for the black people and too black for the white people. And but like some of these spaces that you're in that are predominantly white, it's like, hey, I also identify as half white. So like this is why this is not okay. let me help you understand, because I have family members, I have friends, and I've experienced these things. And this is why when people say this, or when the cops do this is why that's not okay. And this is why you should also say something about it.
Mm. Yeah, I think that sounds great in theory, but when I'm in these white spaces, I feel like my blackness is seen way more than, oh, but you are half white. Like, and so it's like, yes, I'm half white, but I'm not completely white, and so my voice doesn't carry as much weight as my, fully white male counterparts.
That's true, because we say this all the time. Like when you have mixed kids, or any mixed race of a person of color, unfortunately, when danger happens or when the cops pull you over, they are going to identify you as a black person or
Right.
a person of color. And I never thought of it from your perspective, that like when you're in these white spaces, your opinion or your voice doesn't carry as much as a fully white male opinion would, which is it's so interesting. I never thought of it that way. That's wild to me.
Yeah, it's been something I have always been thrown off by, of like both sides saying I'm not enough for them. And so, there's some people that look at me of like, oh, you get to pick and choose. And I'm like, that's what you think, but I'm in a worse situation almost, because both sides say you don't belong.
Mm.
But I'm curious for you, when we think about white allies, what who comes to mind for you that you can, like, that for a fact, oh, this guy's got my back, whether I'm in the room or not, or a
So
person, not just guy,
yeah.
person.
So I live in San Diego, and if you guys don't know it by this you ain't following us. Anyways, so I live in San Diego. San Diego, I would say is very progressive, right? There's a lot going on. I would say when 2020 hit, there was a member that comes to my gym, love her to death. They were like my second family here. They ended up moving to the East Coast. Anyways, but she talked about how. What are you gonna say, Tony? What are you gonna say about me moving back?
Come on back, man. Come on.
So again, there's this member that used to go to my gym, and she was black. She was from the South. I think she was from Mississippi, and she talked about how racist San Diego was. And I was like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Where I'm from, people are racist to your face. So you at least know that they don't like you. You know not to go down this street, not to go down this street." But what I've experienced, her personal experience in San Diego, is racism. Like it's almost like that backhanded racism. And I was like, wow, I've never thought about that before. And I would say my personal experience, I can see that for sure. Not with direct interactions with humans, but I would say kind of maybe with like leadership in different areas. But I can think of a lot of people who I also work with who are very conscious of what they say, very conscious of how they approach people of color, how they talk to people of color. I can think of a manager that I used to have. She is amazing. Love her. Her name is Carrie. I'll say her name. And she had this interaction. We were, it was middle of COVID, and she had this interaction with a member, and we had to. This is when we were working out outdoor. We had this weird procedure that you had to go through, and we were like, "Hey, we have to wait until this person goes up the stairs before you can go in." And this lady took it so offensive, like, "Oh, you're just saying this because I'm black, blah blah blah." So she like it really like she was very distraught. So she came to me. She said, "Hey, comrade, this is the situation. What do you think?" I'm like, "I don't think you did anything wrong. I think I think you're very conscious. I think you, when you're unsure, you actually come to me or other people of color to figure out a solution." And that's what I think of like white allyship. Like, I do think it takes work. I do think it takes work because it's not natural. I think it should become natural, but it's that extra step that she took to be like, "Hey, we're trying to write this about Juneteenth. Is this okay? We're trying to write this about Black History Month. Is this okay?" Now, I appreciate that because it's like me trying to write an article on behalf of white women. What can I relate with you? Like, I have nothing to relate. But I appreciate her, like, people going out of their way to like make sure, hey, this is okay. Is this okay? Now I don't want to be the token black or the voice for all black people, but I do appreciate you going out of your way to make sure what you're thinking, what your thoughts are okay. And I think it's a never ending thing because I just think sometimes you living in your skin, whether you're a white, black, or a person of color, you're just going to think in some way you may be superior, and that just happens. So going out of your way to check on things, I think, I don't know, that brings me some type of joy. Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, when I think of like white allies in my life, two people come to mind. Um, One, he's kind of like a father figure to me. Phil. He's constantly checks in with me around like deaths of different black people that we hear about on the news. Um, but he's my supervisor, but he's okay with me calling him out on blind spots,
Mm.
even though it's really hard conversations. And
Yeah.
most people would be like, how in the world do you talk to your boss like that? And it's not like I come at him hot and heavy or anything, but like I'm just blunt and honest of like, bro, that's not cool. Um and he takes it with grace, and he's quick to say like, yeah, you're right, I'm sorry. And then another guy I went to college with, Bo Hoffman. um I don't see him often, but I know if I ever post something on Facebook like I did probably a month ago, and people kind of got upset, he jumped right in and like just kind of stood in the gap so I didn't have to defend what I posted. And so I really appreciate white people that will say like, "Oh no, you don't have to fight this battle. I got you."
Mm. Mm. And that's what white allyship can look like. Um,
Yes.
what advice or strategies would you give any of our listeners who are looking to take action on white allyship?
if you're looking to take action, be ready to be uncomfortable. This work of anti-racism, white allyship, it is not easy. It will be uncomfortable. It will challenge a lot of your preconceived notions, and just be okay with being wrong and learn. Because if you are open to learning and growing, there are a ton of resources, and we'll put a couple books and movies in the show notes to even help you get started. What about you? What would you add to that?
I love that. I think you put the cherry on the top. Um, in terms of how you could take action is taking action. It's seeing it and then doing something about it. Um, I love what you said about education. I think educating yourself is amazing. Um, I always get nervous when I have friends on social media and I see them on the weekends, white friends, and their whole friend group, every single one, is white. I think you need to have more conversations with people who don't look like you. And that is a great place to start.
Well, and I think to add to that, and tell me if you agree or disagree, like, if you are white and you have black friends or people of color in your circle, evaluate. See when the last time y'all talked about race was. Because I think that is a huge sign to whether or not are you safe. Because people of color, we are constantly talking about race. Like, that is just a discussion for us. If you're white, we're reserved because we don't know if we can trust you. And that's not to um be mean or think we're better or anything like that. It's just we're in so many spaces where we constantly have to defend that gets exhausting. And so until we know you're safe, we won't bring it up.
You know what? I never thought about that until you said that. Because the only time I've ever had race conversations with some of my white friends was around 2020, 2021. And can't say I've had any this year. But you and I have, some of my other friends we have. And it's amazing where I can think of this one girl group that I'm friends with. And I know there's one black girl in there. And I wonder, like, I can say something to her and it can be just like a little one-off conversation, but I wonder if her friends are having those conversations with her. And I don't even know what that conversation would look like. It could just be as simple as like you were saying, Phil, your boss checking in on you, or Bo standing up for you. So talk to your friends of color and just get a temperature check and see how they're doing. How can you be a
Right.
better friend?
Right. And some of you listening to this may say, "Oh, I don't see my friend's color." That's not good. See their color, see their beauty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you guys were saying you are colorblind when you're referring to race. Stop saying that, because
Please.
we see our color, you see our color, and we love it. Black is beautiful. All shades are beautiful. So acknowledge color, learn about color, learn about race, learn about different ethnicities, and enjoy it, love it. And that's how you can be a better ally. One of the ways you can be a better ally.
What a closer.
Another great episode, y'all. Real talks. We get real. We get honest. This was not scripted. This is off the cuff. When we take our mics off, guys, that's how you know. That's how you know we're relaxed. We're in for it. You're in for it. Again, we are doing a book this month. Tony, let them know the book once again.
Made for People by Justin Whitmer Early.
It's about friendship. We talk a little bit about friendship, how you can be a better friend. So read the book with us. We're going to talk about it in a later episode. And I think that's it for now. Hey, shout out to MSW Media. Support us, like us. Until next time, be authentic in everything that you do. Peace.
Peace.